So I've been looking at Jump AI for a few months now. It's an advisor-centric tool that offers the ability to cut down our meeting admin work by 90%. So it's for financial advisors, and they do this by running in the background of meetings. And there's a few key things that they do. One's meeting prep. So it's the one pager before entering a meeting, kind of like I attribute it or compare it to like a surgeon walking into the surgery room. Everything's prepped, done, and he or she is ready to do the one thing that they do best. In our case, it's being face to face with the client and helping and listening and helping the client, right? The other thing Jump AI does is meeting follow up. So they have custom styles depending on what type of meeting it is, where they can type up or automatically write the summary to the meeting, whether you share it via email or however you share it with clients, so that there's action steps and everything that we need. So that alone, that meeting follow up summary and action steps is pretty seems pretty useful. And then the other big one is it syncs directly to your CRM. So it's one click and then it can port over all the information to the CRM. There's a few other important things that it does. So I wanted to learn more because it sounds really cool. So I met with the CEO and the founder, Parker Ence, and we recorded the meeting and then I time stamped it so you can skip around and see what if you want. There's a certain spot that you want to skip to. And the thing that I found most interesting about this is, yes, you can use it for meeting prep and follow up, but it can also be used to evaluate and train either yourself or your team who's in sales meetings, in the intro calls with people, because it gives us stats on how much we talked versus our prospective client. And it even, this isn't a feature that they advertise, but as you can see in this conversation, we may be able to use it for content marketing for us advisors, which they haven't thought about before. At least that's what he said. But look for that part of the meeting, because that could cut down some helpful content marketing if that's how you're growing, attracting people to you. So I hope you enjoy this meeting with Parker. And if you do, give this video a like or subscribe if you're not subscribed, because this channel is all for advisors and it's just sharing what we're doing at Streamline. And we want to share some of the success with you. So hope you like it. And then I'll see you in the next video after this one. So Parker, I am, and we are at Streamline, we're evaluating a whole bunch of different tools out there. We're seeing more and more about AI and how it's making advisors efficient. There's a few different offerings. There's Zoom note-taking, there's Zoom AI, which is the easiest thing because we're already using Zoom. We're testing that out. There are countless others. I talked to you last month and was checking out the website and kind of getting interested. I saw a post from Josh Brown, like a lot of people did, that probably got some people interested in Jump AI. But give us a kind of high level overview of what's Jump AI doing? How are you making advisors better? How are advisors using it now? Give me some high level things here.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. So it's really enjoyable to chat last month and excited to be here. So so the background story of Jump is myself and my two co-founders, we've got pretty heavy background in AI, data, and fintech. And so about a year and a half ago, we'd started working on this tool that would help really anybody to record a meeting and then make it really easy to update their CRM after the meeting was over. Most of us don't wake up in the morning getting super excited about typing things into Salesforce or Redtail or Wealthbox or whatever. So we were working on that, and my brother's an advisor, my brother-in-law is an advisor, and then my neighbor is an advisor. So I was kind of telling them how things were progressing for us. And my neighbor said, look, man, I do meetings all week. I spend almost as much time preparing for these meetings and processing these meetings as I am in the meeting. And I think some of the Kitsis research has kind of reflected that is statistically true. And so he kind of said, look, my ideal situation is I show up to the meeting prepared without having to dig through all of my old CRM notes. I can be 100% present with my client without worrying about typing everything and getting every little financial planning data point down. And then when my meeting is done, I've created a bunch of work for myself because I had this meeting. So I've got to go update my CRM. I've got to send a recap email to the client. I've got to log everything in a way that my next SEC exam will, they'll feel really good about the quality of my notes. I've got to delegate all of my follow-up items to my investment team and my operations team. And then there's all this financial planning data that comes up during the meeting that I need to make sure to carefully transfer into their financial plan so that we actually do a good job for them. And to do a really high quality, effort on all of this, it could be anywhere between 15 and 50 minutes per meeting. And I've seen ChatGPT and I've seen some of these generic note takers kicking around, and I think I can finally automate this. We've been trying to automate it for probably 20 years. We've done everything. We've hired junior advisors to scribe. We've done the kind of copy talk mobile assistant thing. We've tried out some of these, the Zoom summarizer, the Teams summarizer. There's a bunch of startups, Fathom, Otter, Fireflies. And those were really cool at first. In fact, we kind of felt like it was magic. It's like we get this really great summary, but then maybe 10 times, 15 times in, we realized that we were rewriting all of those AI outputs because it wasn't really advisor specific for us enough. It wasn't picking up on all of the little details, pulling out all the financial planning facts. And so we're really just looking for something that is made for advisors, allows us to customize the outputs so that it feels like it's from us, not from just a generic, AI model. We obviously deal with intense scrutiny from our compliance team. And so we need to make sure that the data is handled in a way that the client PII is safe, that the data retention is something that's controlled by us. And it goes along the lines of our compliance policies. And then finally, we've spent a bunch of money on the rest of our tech stack. So we'd really like this piece to plug in seamlessly with our CRM and some of our other tools. So that initial conversation, which, that was over the course of many conversations, but that all led to the design of Jump. And so we sort of, this conversation was a spark that led us to get completely focused on working with financial advisors. So we now only work with advisors. We had a bunch of design partners in 2023. We kind of openly launched in January of 2024. And I think the response has been really good. And we're now working with hundreds and hundreds of RIAs and broker dealer teams. And I think the response has been, this saves us a bunch of time. This is a better experience for the client, better experience for me. And so it's been really fun to see this roll out. And I would say of all the different AI technologies that advisors are looking at, I think Josh Brown, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, others have kind of said, look, it's scary for me to think about getting AI to build a portfolio or to make investment recommendations. Pretty sure the SEC wouldn't really like that at this stage, but getting efficiency, making it so that I can take on more clients because I'm not spending so much time per client on admin work. That feels like low hanging fruit, feels a little safer. And so I think because of that, we've seen this category of technology be the fastest in terms of adoption for AI tools.
It sounds a little bit like magic, as we're talking about it. So the big things was pre-meeting prep. It's kind of like that dream of, you hear about how doctors walk into the surgery and they go in, they do their thing, and then they leave and they do their specialty. Our specialty is connecting with people and talking with people in these meetings and everything that comes along with that. So it kind of sounds like that pre-meeting, and then in the meeting, the benefit was just not having to have the notepad and be taking all the notes and the type of pauses and stuff that comes with that. You could kind of rely on the recording and AI to do that. And then post-meeting follow-up, the action items. When we've used, I know you mentioned Zoom AI, I did too. When we used tools in the past, it hasn't been great. How do you customize the output per firm? How can I do that at our firm?
Yeah. So maybe it might be actually easier to show you. I think,
Yeah.
Picture's always worth 1,000 words. So the way that this works is you start off by connecting your existing tools. As I mentioned, we think a really important part of this is deep integrations with your existing advisor tech stack. So what do you guys use for CRM?
HubSpot.
Okay, great. We do actually have a secret HubSpot integration, so we can talk about that later. But you are a rare bird, so we don't run into that as much. But
Yeah.
typically, it's going to be one of these three. Obviously, there's a couple others that we run into, and then you're going to connect your virtual meeting tools. Do you guys use mostly Zoom, Teams? What are you typically using?
Yeah. Zoom.
Okay, great. So connect Zoom, and then connect your. Are you guys a Google shop or an Outlook shop?
Google.
Okay, so connect Google. That allows us to basically see what meetings you've got coming up. And we can then automatically schedule that note taker for your meetings. We do also support in-person meetings. And so we've got mobile apps, we've got, you can use your laptop to record. There's a lot of ways to get audio in. We will also take a dictation for those that like to do that, or maybe didn't have a chance to record. Maybe they were at a lunch meeting or something like that. So a lot of ways to get audio in. And then within 5 minutes of the meeting ending, you would get an email that says your meeting's ready to review. And then clicking through that, you would get to the post meeting page, which is what you see here. So our goal here is really just to get you to a 95% final draft on all of the artifacts that you need to properly handle that meeting when the meeting's done. And so this goes to your question, how do we handle the meeting note? So we have default meeting note templates that just work the day that you turn it on. So, it works after your first meeting, after turning on Jump. And what that's going to look like is we're going to do some summarization. We're going to do a narrative kind of paragraph based discussion of what was covered during the meeting. This will read as though it was written by a senior advisor. It's going to pick up on those types of topics. We'll pull in personal attributes that would be helpful from a relationship perspective. What questions were asked, how were they answered, what was recommended, what was quoted in terms of service level and fee. We also pull in all the financial planning data that comes up during the meeting as a reference for the advisor or for the advisor's team. I think this is especially helpful in an ensemble or a diamond structure where you've got multiple people working off of, working on that client relationship. We also build a little profile of the client based on the conversation. The goal there is just to flag any material items from their life situation that might affect your recommendations from a fiduciary perspective. So this is our default note. This just works, but we actually have this entire orchestration layer behind the scenes where the advisor can go in, they can name and customize the types of meetings that they do. Some advisors have very organized, sort of disciplined meeting types. Not everybody does that, but you can sort of map your meeting structure here. And then you can control all of the outputs, whether it's the note or a recap email. You can edit and change exactly what that's going to look like, so that whenever it generates an output, it's going to look like you. So that's kind of the goal there with the notes.
That's pretty cool. Because even just like the tables that you had in there, I haven't seen that yet with other tools. That's super cool. And the
Yeah,
different
and
meeting
I'll
that's
mention,
huge.
a lot of advisors that we work with, they've got an organized way that they'll do, say, a discovery meeting or a first time meeting where they're really getting the download. And, of course, there are other form tools and things like that where you can send that out to the client and gather information. But there's still a lot of information that is only relayed verbally that needs to get captured. And so what we've seen is some of our advisors will take sort of an intake form that they would talk through with the client, and they'll actually mirror that in the note in Jump so that they just kind of talk through that conversation. And then at the end, they get all of that organized in the same format that they would expect to see.
Okay. So after the meeting, we've got this. I heard you maybe say it transfers to a plan, or is that more manual transfer to e-money, or how does that work?
Yeah, today it's manual. Um,
Okay.
we've got plans there, but yeah, today it would be manual process.
Okay, cool. And there's some to-dos, action items. And then a year from now or whenever I'm meeting with the same client, how does that pre-meeting prep look? Where we're getting the one pager or whatever. What does that look like?
Yeah. So the way that we do that is we want to make sure and help advisors prepare. And specifically, we want to help them nail that first 5 to 10 minutes with the personal touch, really help that client feel known by the advisor. And so the way that we do that is we would see on the calendar that you've got a meeting coming up, and we would basically match the client that's in that calendar event to their data in the CRM. And then we extract that data and then we summarize it in a way that just kind of helps them percolate what's actually interesting that would kind of help them remember. So we typically deliver that in the form of an email that automatically comes to the advisor at some point before the meeting. So this would be an example of an email that an advisor would receive before the meeting to help them prepare. In this case, we have basically matched Pedro from the calendar event to the CRM, and now we're summarizing information. So some examples would be, what are things that Pedro has said is important to him, some upcoming life events that he's mentioned. Here's kind of summary of the last few meetings that Pedro's been involved with our firm. Who's in the household? What are the kids' sports? Those kinds of things. And then conversation starters. So this would be based on a prior note. So you can see here, it says, ask Pedro how he feels about the upcoming transition of his business to his son. That's based on an old note that's sitting in the CRM.
Oh, wow. So how about when let's pretend it's a one meeting per year thing with Pedro. and he sends email mid-year. It comes to you and it's related to some financial question or something he's thinking about doing financially related. Are there any sort of pop-ups, reminders, things? Would we be logging into Jump AI or are we just going to our CRM like normal just to get a refresher about Pedro? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So as long as the advisor is logging their emails in their CRM, that's where we're currently picking those up. And we'd say that we've seen that most do. They have some way to log those as activities or emails in their CRM. For those that don't, we are working on a way to just kind of pull that directly from the email if they're not logging it in the CRM. But that email content will be reflected in the pre-meeting prep as today, as long as it's in the CRM.
Okay. So regular emails in Gmail are not getting picked up unless we're having it go to HubSpot or whatever the CRM is. That's what.
Today, yeah,
Okay. Gotcha.
that'll change.
Okay. Awesome. What about you had mentioned PII and data. That's the big concern. Give me the rundown again on just how advisors are okay with this, how compliance teams, broker dealers are okay with this.
Yeah, sure. So I think there are usually three main compliance hotspots that come up whenever we're talking with advisors or, we're going through right now a lot of DDQ questionnaires and things like that. So the three are first recording. So one kind of interesting thing is you've got some tools out there that are claiming that they're not doing recording, and the way they're doing that is they're streaming the audio directly to transcript. We've seen compliance teams generally say, sorry, yes, I understand that that's not generating an audio file or a video file, but we're still transcribing the meeting. That's still a recording. So it's important to get disclosure into that conversation. In the virtual meeting, sometimes that's handled automatically. If it's an in-person meeting, you just want to say, hey, is it okay with you if I capture this meeting for note-taking purposes or something along those lines? In some states, it's required by law. We generally recommend just do it with all of your clients. It's just better client service. So that's the first piece. The second piece is data retention, who owns the data, who controls the data. In Jump, we have a pretty flexible setup so that a compliance officer can come in and decide how long the data is retained, whether it's long-term, short-term. If they want to sort of delete some of these recordings quickly after the notes are permanent, that's an option. If they want to save those long-term, that's an option. So that's an important piece. And then the last piece is really just how is PII handled with AI models? At some point last year, the SEC came out and said, hey, you need to be careful that these models aren't training based on your PII because there are ways it can leak out in unexpected methods. And so the way that we handle that is that we don't train any AI models with PII. And so you can think of the AI model, the way that we've designed our data pipeline, as a big expensive calculator. You basically send in some problems, it does the math, and then it pushes back the answer, and then it clears. There's no retention of that data in the AI model. It's just passing through. And that typically is just fine with a compliance team.
Okay. So for the client, our clients are 55 plus. We haven't had anyone say this, but I could see someone saying, I don't feel comfortable recording financial info and having it go to an AI company that I don't know. For us, we'd probably say, okay, cool. We won't do it. How would you answer that question to bring them peace of mind?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the accurate answer is so if I'm the advisor, I would say, totally get it. We use this as a way to help us make sure that we capture everything that we talk about. Computers are better at remembering things than humans in a lot of cases. And so this just makes sure that we get all the follow-up action items and everything. We control the data. This data is not going to be used for anything other than for our summarization and note-taking purposes. Obviously, if you're not comfortable with that, then we won't use it. And then, behind the scenes, the advisor's option with Jump is they could then go in and record a dictation after the meeting. That would sort of be the fallback.
Okay. We control the data. It does go to Jump AI, but it gets cleared. It's not used for training purposes. It's not saved. We use it like we
Yeah.
would any other meeting note in our CRM. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And we obviously interact, frankly, your financial data is going into many software packages after our meeting, right? We've got the planning software, we've got custodian software, we've got CRM. This is really no different with the way that we've designed the AI data pipeline. It's the data is not really treated any differently than it would anywhere else.
Okay. There's something on the website that said smart syncable tasks.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
know I'm jumping around here. Back to the post meeting follow up. Is that a click of the button getting into the CRM for tasks, or how does that work?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the note and kind of how that is handled after the client meeting. And so maybe we just pick up where we left off there.
Mhm.
It's important in AI to have the human in the loop, which just means you want to make sure that your advisors are reviewing the AI output. And so, in order to make that easy, we've developed kind of full rich text editing. They can go in and change anything in the note. If they want to check something where they see something in here where they don't 100% remember where that may have come from. So, for example, here we've got Tim disclosed his income as a software engineer at Qualtrics, earning $180,000 annually. So we can highlight that and then we can click explain. And the AI assistant is actually going to basically justify its answer. So it's going to go find that moment in the meeting. It's going to give the extracted quote and it's going to give a timestamp. And then that is clickable. So you can click on that
Picture.
timestamp.
Yeah, for sure. So I work at a tech company around here.
And then that's the way that they can go and kind of check on anything that they're not totally sure. And then we want to get that note into the CRM. So here's an example with Wealthbox, but it works pretty similar with Redtail, Salesforce, and others. We're going to pull directly from the client list in the CRM. And then we can also deal with custom fields or tags or other things that you've set up in the CRM. And then when you click sync, that's going to create a new note in the CRM. It's pretty similar for tasks. So the way that this works is if you're having your conversation with your client, maybe you say something like, hey, it looks like your will is out of date. We're going to connect you with an estate attorney and you can basically get that updated. So an action item like that would get pulled out of the conversation and it would be structured into a data object that the advisor can edit. So this is all AI generated. You've got a title, you've got context from the meeting. You can assign it to anyone that's in your CRM. And it's also going to put a due date based on you saying something like, I'll get that to you Tuesday, or I'll get that to you by the tax deadline or something like that. It's going to repeat that process for every action item that comes up in the meeting. And then you've got some options for how to move that into your CRM. So if you're on Redtail, Wealthbox, you can choose to push those in as a task or activity. We also integrate with workflows in those CRMs. And so you can kick off workflows and the AI assistant is actually going to look at your list of workflows and match those. If you're working in Salesforce, we can push those into tasks, into cases. And so there's a lot of ways to get that in. But at the end of the day, the goal is just number one, let's not forget any action items. And number two, let's get those into the CRM as quickly as possible so that the service time, the turnaround time on service is as fast as possible. Sometimes your team's waiting on what do we need to do, and it might take a day or two to kind of get organized after a meeting.
That's excellent. Question about a different type of meeting type, which is we've kind of been talking about clients and making the advisors more efficient currently with who we're helping. What about prospective client meetings? Is there a meeting type that we can customize that I don't know if this is possible, but you know how we want to talk a lot less than what our prospective or our client is talking? Is there a way Jump AI? I know I'm throwing these curveballs out here, but I'm
No,
just
this is great.
curious. Can it Jump AI tell us what percentage of time we're talking? Can it say, how many questions did we ask? Did we ask we've got a list of 10, 20 rapport building questions. Did we build rapport by asking these questions? Did we summarize? All the things we have a pretty good sales process with types, the different categories of the meeting. Can Jump AI help with that?
Yeah, so there are a few ways that we can help with that. The first is you can actually set up different meeting types that align to your process. So you can see here, one of our default meeting types is the discovery or the intro meeting. And that's designed to be more of a, really more of a sales meeting, or a meeting where you're just kind of gathering a lot of information, asking questions. You can completely change the way that the AI output for the notes looks. And you could actually put in all of your fact finding or your discovery questions and then have the AI assistant summarize the answers that were given. And then if you wanted to create a scorecard for yourself, maybe you've decided, in our discovery meetings, we want to make sure we always do these 5 things. So you could actually set up a scorecard where it checks for each of those types of meetings. In addition, you mentioned talk time. So we do actually provide a talk time counter, which is going to go ahead and sort of just count up who was talking, how long. This is clickable. So if you're curious, man, it looks like Parker was really droning on at the end there. What was that? You can actually click on that and it'll pop that open. Well, this is certainly enough in the recording and you can figure out what was going on there. So that's some of the things that we do for
Yeah,
those types of meetings.
that's super cool. Very useful. There was one thing you were showing that it looked like maybe it was on the tasks section when I think you typed something in. Is there a conversational element to this?
Yeah. So there are a few things. The one that has been around for us the longest is this piece that is called Ask Anything. And we were the first ones in the space to create something like this. The use case here is maybe you do 4 meetings in a day. You're now finally sitting down to process the meetings. And I don't know about you, but if I do 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings in a day, I can barely remember the first meeting by the time it gets to the end of the day. So the goal here is really just this is kind of like a mini chat GPT. It'll take open-ended questions. You can say something like, what did we discuss related to real estate? Give amounts. Also, what are the kids' ages and hobbies? And so then that's going to use the meeting data as the source, and it's just going to go find that answer and pull it out and summarize it for the advisor. So this is really helpful for an advisor that's trying to remember a certain answer to a certain question, or maybe they want slightly more detail on a particular topic than was given in the default note, and they want to just quickly get that summary. It's also really helpful for the team to figure out what was going on in the meeting, and then you can kind of see how that's returned here.
Wow. So another curveball for you. One thing that I teach other advisors or share with other advisors is the ones who want to do content marketing to attract people is think about your day, think about your week and the people that you helped and the problems that you helped solve. Take one thing or 2 or 3, whatever you could think of, and turn that into a short piece of content. Hey, somebody had this problem. It was causing this pain. Here's the solution we talked about. Could we type in that framework and say, without using PII or any data, give me a story from my meetings this week that were related to Roth conversions or related to an investment decision or, over allocation to an individual stock, whatever it might be. Could this do that?
Let's try it.
Okay, no one's done this before.
All right. So I'm typing in, give me a story from this meeting that was related to Roth conversions that demonstrated how I, as the advisor, was able to help the client. Please remove all PII from your answer. Well, it didn't remove the name, so that's a flop. But it looks like
Okay.
the rest, it did the rest. So
So that's super interesting because that would save a lot of time, me a lot of time, because the stuff that I share on Streamline Financial, YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever, a lot of times it's just stories. Obviously not the client info, but
yeah,
it's helpful to other people. That's very interesting. That would be fun
I
too.
will tell you this is between you and me until this gets posted to YouTube. But we're actually so what you're seeing here is this is sort of related to one meeting. Very soon we'll have something that's going to work across meetings, and so you could actually just ask, of my meetings this week, give me 3 stories that sort of demonstrate how I was able to give great service or help a client with a problem they had or something. However you typically advise that that this is done, but you could do that across meetings and even across clients. So I think that could probably make this even easier.
Wow. So this is really, I'm thinking of the different pillars of the business. We've got marketing. There's kind of something here, maybe. It would be fun to play around with. We've got sales help, which is it's recording the intro calls and giving advice based on the output we give it or the template or framework. It is product, which is helping us improve which is a service, right? Our service that we're giving clients. It's helping us remember things. Operationally, it's helping the team, the back office become more efficient with meeting prep, with post-meeting follow-up, all of that. Is there anything else out there that Jump AI or ways that advisors have used this that's a little bit different than what you thought they would use it for or what you created it for?
So I think it's interesting to think about, you kind of build something, you put it into the world, you see how people use it and they always surprise you. I mean, this one's more kind of a funny thing, but we're always just shocked at the very, very diverse ways that people have set up their tech stacks. And so we've had to put in all kinds of things just to accommodate, maybe they only want certain types of client meetings recorded. So we built a calendar filter, right? Or maybe they've got really, really specific requirements for how their notes look. And so we've had to evolve the way that we do customizations to really mirror their tone. And we've got everything from advisors saying, hey, this note needs to be way more detailed. I want to I want to send a 2 or 3 page email that says basically this is everything we talked about. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got an advisor that's like, I want 5 bullet points. And so, we've had to evolve to really accommodate a pretty wide range of customization.
Okay. So now it comes to the logistics. Say someone's like, I love this. I want this to be a part of our firm. How's the onboarding? Is there a learning element that takes place with AI? Does it take a while to get going? How does that work?
Yeah. So the way that onboarding works with Jump is if you basically sign up for Jump, we send you an email, like via email, we send you a login. And then you basically connect your CRM, you connect your calendar, and then it just works out of the box. So it comes preloaded with a bunch of defaults. It's got meeting types set up, kind of the more common meeting types. They're just going to come preloaded. And what we usually recommend is that you do a week or maybe 2 weeks of meetings just kind of in the default mode. And that'll give you a sense for how it works, what kind of notes it's going to generate, emails. And then you can circle back with our team and we can help you customize so that everything that you output looks like something that's coming from you, coming from your firm. And the best, easiest way to do that is if you bring some examples and just say, hey, here's my favorite email I've ever written. This email is so good, it should be like framed. And then we'll load that in and tell the AI assistant, write an email like this every time for this kind of meeting. And so then that's how we're able to evolve it. And that usually happens over chat. So you can chat with our team anytime. Or if it's a more involved process, we can just set up a call and kind of talk through it on a Zoom or something like that.
Okay. Do you recommend having one person, if we're a team of 9, do you recommend having one person be the Jump AI expert for implementation, or is it each advisor should know how to do this?
Yeah. So I think we've seen different approaches. It's always helpful to have one internal expert, I think, for any software that you bring on. So yes, for sure, have somebody really dig in. What we've seen work really well is you kind of start with the default templates. Then you've got one person that sort of leads the charge on, hey, we want to just create a default for our whole team. And so then now we've got kind of the team defaults. And then whenever a new user joins, they start out with, these are the defaults for our firm. And then, of course, we do allow for customization, not only at the firm level, but also at the advisor level. So if then an advisor wants to do additional customization, they're certainly able to do that.
Okay. Gotcha. Can I ask since you're in this space, can I ask you kind of the even high level, big picture AI and advisory impact? Some people are afraid of it and say, oh, it's going to do more and more and get really good and be able to talk to my clients and offer financial advice and update a portfolio and do all the stuff as it progresses. How should we be thinking about it? What advice do you give to advisors who are just either positive or negative? I know that's not a great question, but
Yeah.
what should we be thinking?
Yeah, sure. So if you kind of take a step back and look at every technological advancement, in almost all cases, when a new technology is ready for use, it helps all different kinds of customers or buyers at the very high end of the market. It's going to basically raise the bar for what's possible, right? So the best, just the people that are delivering the best products and services, it just gets better. And so then it's like you get what you pay for at the very high end, it gets way better. And so you could imagine for an advisor, the best advisor in the world doesn't have a bulletproof memory. They're still going to forget some things, right? So now you've got an AI assistant that helps you remember everything. So that now is a little better. On the other end of the market, technology almost always opens up access to the very lowest end of the market, where before there were customers that they couldn't really be serviced because it wasn't cost effective to service them. And so they basically had no options. And so I think from that perspective, you now will have firms that are able to service clients that maybe had a lower net worth than was economical to service. But now, because of the leverage that comes from AI, it suddenly does make sense to do that. So you kind of expand in both directions. So I think, that's great. Like if you're a client, you're going to just, regardless of whether you have, you're ultra high net worth or you're not, you're going to get, some like you're going to get a better experience. For the advisor profession, I think that, of course there's always the worry that new technology is going to replace me or make me irrelevant. And yes, there are going to be startups that come out saying, we're going to replace the advisor entirely with like an AI advisor. I think at Jump, based on everything we've seen, talking to clients, talking to advisors, for the foreseeable future, there is some magic when you're dealing with things as important as, will I have enough to retire? What's my legacy? Financial freedom, financial security. There's some human element that I just think we are so far away from replacing, that humans will always want to connect with another human when it comes to that kind of critical life impacting topic. And so we're super excited about building the Iron Man suit for the advisor that just lets them get more leverage, be better, do more, versus replacing them with some kind of like AI Ultron or something like that. So that's kind of the position that we've taken.
That's what I think too. I think the technical side of what we do will be, at some point in the near future or whenever, we'll be able to, a lot of it will probably get done by AI, is a guess. But even though the AI chatting and conversation, it acts empathetic, there's still, it's not empathetic. It doesn't feel feelings like
Yeah, I think,
human does. And I think there's a
yeah,
reciprocity there that doesn't go away. So that's
yeah,
good news.
I think AI's got about as much empathy as the internet, which wide range there, right? I mean, there is no thinking happening here. I know you know this, but for those that aren't as familiar with how generative AI works, to really, really simplify it, the entire internet was dumped into a big math model, and you put in some text, and then it statistically predicts what text should come based on the text you just put in. That's not thinking. That's just predicting, you know, letters and words based on some input, and that'll get, better and better. And maybe someday we'll have AGI, but I think, we'll cross that bridge, I guess.
For now, we could use Jump AI and put on an Iron Man suit and help a lot of people.
That's right.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Parker. This was awesome.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.